I mean, he has to cook, right? Or does he? What's up, guys? I'm Hunter here, and here to do a breakdown and discussion. It should be a quick one, I think. I don't know, because I feel like it's so locked in, but at this point, the way that Kaiser and Isagi have been developing, and this whole, like, crazy, not last minute, I guess we've been building to it, but this, like, plot line about, I don't know, spotlight about geniuses versus prodigies. I'm scared because I need him to do something because I actually care. But let's not waste any more time and let's hop right into it. What's up, guys? That guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do it too. Have it on me and keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact, Ness is in a weird spot. He's in a very weird spot. And not necessarily narratively, despite this being a Ness narrative analysis video, if you know what I'm talking about. So essentially, what I, and many others, from the moment we were kind of introduced to Ness, but especially once we got Ness' backstory right before PXG, kind of had a switch flipped in our heads, if you will. Especially after the Hiyori performance in Ubers, when right before Ubers, or right in the middle of Ubers, I do forget the context, that has been a little bit since I reread Ubers, but we got Hiyori backstory. And what is Hiyori? A really good midfielder. What is Ness? A really good midfielder. What is also Ness? You know, a person who started to see... So, like... Well, let me finish that phrase. A person who started to see Isagi's magic. And what did Kaiser do? Throw away Ness. As we predicted, based on their negative relationship. Like, so much had kind of been leaning heavily, thickly, juicily into Ness being him. Alright? Being the guy that's gonna get Isagi Yoichi this final goal. From him seeing the magic of Isagi at the end of Ubers, to Kaiser's repeated negligence of Ness, to Kaiser in the middle of the game, essentially saying, Ness, go away. Like, legitimately, everything seemed to be leaning to that. And in fact, I'm still, like, darn near 99.999999999% confident that Rin and Loki and Charles and Kaiser and Noah, despite all the work against our glorious, legendary, amazing, scrumbly, I'm just King Isagi Yoichi, we're gonna be fine. I'll be okay. It don't matter, right? Like, shit, they can work against my glorious king all they want, but the plot's got a plot, and the plot means Isagi needs to win and go undefeated so he can be the proper team lead for the U20 arc and stuff like that. Bada bing, bada, like, it's digi-destined, right? But now, the way this narrative isn't going, it's kind of been weird. Mainly because Ness has not necessarily been used as too much of a piece away from Kaiser, if you know what I'm talking about. Essentially, he's still feeding back into that loop. And of course, I get some of that, right? Like, obviously, Kaiser, when he first threw away Ness was like, but Daddy, no. So, like, clearly, I wasn't expecting Ness to just immediately flip or anything. But especially considering a lot of Isagi's introspection recently hasn't necessarily been about the nature of the field or other people. It's been about himself relative to other people who play in similar ways to himself, aka other strikers. He hasn't even given the idea of Ness a thought. And, like, Corona got off the field. And he hasn't even spoken to Hiyori for a while in the manga. Like, I think the last time he spoke to Hiyori in the manga was months ago. After... Not even... Was it even... No, he didn't even really speak to Hiyori after Rin's goal. I think it was literally after his own goal. Or no. It was after, I believe it was after Kaiser's Magnus Impact, which was like a couple months ago. And of course, in universe, it's only been like 10-15 minutes, but still, Hiyori hasn't really been part of the equation. Kunigami got taken off the field. Corona got taken off the field. Igaguri is not going to pass Isagi. Or at least it wouldn't make sense for that to be the link up there. So it has to be Ness, right? But at the same time, Ness hasn't really appeared and built to it. And with the whole idea of geniuses versus prodigies, or talented learners versus geniuses coming out to play, I don't know. But at the same time, the reason I'm, like, flipping back and forth on whether I'm actually concerned or not is because there's no way Isagi's not getting a pass into what he needs. But at the same time, like many others, I also do want to see Isagi and Kaiser work together. You know what I'm talking about? Like, that's the thing. Especially considering we will never get this opportunity again. Well, maybe never is maybe dragging it slightly. But, like, unless the series goes in a direction that maybe some people are, once again, that's the thing, I don't know. A lot of people are confident that a club arc is going to happen. If not pre the U20 arc, right after it. Like, a lot of people, there are two trajectories I've seen for the series so far. There are people who believe we're going to go from the scrumbly-umptious Neo-Egotist League into maybe a slight little in-between arc that may be like 5-10 chapters long into the U20 World Cup arc. We're going to lose that. All of our characters are then going to go into a club arc, and then we're going to get into the real World Cup. Because essentially, with Noah not being hinted at retiring anytime soon, with Noah only doubling down as the final antagonist for Isagi, with the possibility of Loki and Noah being on the same team, as both of them are born and originated in France, and thus like, they'd be the nationals team that we need to fight, and obviously Loki's an endgame boss. Obviously, a lot of characters like Luna and the rest of the World 5 are endgame boss. Like, so obviously, the series is not really going to end at the U20 Cup. I don't think that is like a possibility. But even still, unless Isagi, I mean, he could go to BM. The main thing that I and many others are worried about is that we're never going to get an idea or a possibility or a way where Isagi and Kaiser will be on the same team working together. And narratively and character-wise, which one do I want to see more? If you were to lift up a Splahooter to my dome piece and be like, speak, Pencil Man, I would want Isagi and Kaiser, but at the same time, I feel like if we don't get Ness involved in that somehow, I don't think it works. Because like, then why'd we spend time in the backstory? That's the thing. Sure, we are in backstory lock right now, but, well, not really, not in the manga currently, like, we're still on the pitch. But still, backstory lock is a canon thing for the most part, but what would it be? Because, obviously, like, the dream, gorgeous, legendary scenario would be something like this, right? The pitch, it's live, it's dangerous. Somehow, some way, Isagi has the ball. And then, in some sort of final bid, sign of a bit of desperation, something along those lines, he says, Ness, please, assist me! And he sends the ball to Ness. And Ness, in like a glorious 50-50, or somehow Ness gets the ball, whichever happens, in a glorious 50-50, he has to choose between the magical hero king, Isagi Yoichi, and the divine emperor, Michael Kaiser. And ultimately, following the magic of Isagi Yoichi, he sends the most beautiful curved pass, the most beautiful lob over to Isagi. Isagi scores, and everybody starts breakdancing. But then, that doesn't include Kaiser. At least not Kaiser as, like, what we've seen him so far. Especially with the latest chapter, or at least the latest chapter I've read, ending off with Kaiser screaming about the unfairness of the nature of the world, in a very similar way to how Isagi, for all the latest chapter that I read, which was 270, 281, 281, 281? 281. 281 is the most recent one at the time of recording. Essentially, in 281, it had Isagi complaining about genetics, and then by proxy also had Kaiser complaining about genetics. So it feels like something between these two has to happen, specifically in terms of their link up. But then I don't know how you slide Ness in, because until the PXG match went super heavy on Kaiser, and once again tripling down the dynamics and equality between Kaiser and Isagi, I was so confident Ness was just going to slot in there and then pick Isagi over Kaiser, or Isagi was going to pick Ness up from Kaiser, like the Scar's trash that Kaiser treated him as, and then we're going to use Ness for that. But, like, I don't know now. Because it feels like this is building to an Isagi-Kaiser moment, or at least a moment where Isagi finally gets accepted by Kaiser, in the same way that Isagi has sort of accepted Kaiser already. So that's the 50-50 we're in. The only other way is that it ends up being a chain sequence. Then again, I feel like any sort of pass from Ness to Kaiser kind of invert. That's the thing. Do you have both? I think you kind of can't have both. That's the thing. I'm trying to find a way where you can have both. Ultimately, with Isagi and Kaiser both being strikers, and Isagi needing to get this final goal, if Ness passes to Kaiser, but then Kaiser passes to Isagi, then technically, the Ness-Isagi connection exists, but it's really a connection between Isagi and Kaiser. And don't be wrong, like I said, I like that. I personally am in the camp that Kaiser is Isagi's best rival. Though admittedly, I'm mad recency bias coded, and that's not how that phrase would go at all. But essentially, I know that is insane recency bias. I do not care. And I like Baro and Isagi's dynamic. I like Nagi in Isagi's dynamic. And I like Rin in Isagi's dynamic, but like, I'm just a Kaiser Glazer, alright? A Kaiser Creamer, if you will. But that's the thing. If you include one, you sort of negate the other. And, like, maybe we do negate Kaiser at this point? That's the thing. Who would I sacrifice? And, like, narratively speaking, would it make sense to sacrifice Kaiser in order to give Ness the moment that fits into the fact that we already had his backstory, and then slides into the overarching theme of Isagi's magic being unique from Kaiser's, and Isagi's whole nature being much more accepting in his ego style and his playing. Now he sort of uses everything on the field, including people he may have not once trusted before, or people he had to grow to work with, like Ness. Like, what narrative is more satisfying? Essentially, that's the question I'm asking, because I don't think you can have both. If you guys can think of a way to have both, where AKA we get Kaiser and we get Isagi working together, and at the same time we get Ness in there somehow without undermining anything somehow, please do. Because at the top of the dome piece, I just don't see the vision. Let's see, Isagi passes to Ness, and Ness passes back to Isagi. That excludes Kaiser. Ness passes to Kaiser, who passes to Isagi. That excludes Ness, at least directly to the link to Isagi. Because that's the thing. There's no real chain. There's no real chain. If one of them was a defender, maybe, but like that's not the case. So I'm trying to think of a way. I mean, maybe you could have a moment where like all three work together. But then again, once again, that would undermine Ness's like character story and what ultimately his journey is all about: finding his own magic, playing in the way he wants to, and essentially being liberated from Kaiser. Because don't get me wrong, Kaiser is still a terrible person. Like I love him. He's arguably my favorite character now. But like, he's still a real bad dude. And ultimately, I think Ness's story is about breaking free of Kaiser. But then again, I suppose like you got to give Kaiser something, because who's gonna replace Ness in Kaiser's wheelhouse? Can't be Grimm, who Birkenstock. Like come on now, Mansa. But I don't know. Because that's the thing. The Kaiser Creamer in me wants to just give it to Kaiser. If I have to sacrifice Ness, if the Ness backstory ends up being just a red herring, then I think that's fine in order to get Kaiser and Isagi reconciling and working together. But at the same time, I want Ness to have his moment. That's the thing that gets me the most. I want Ness to have his moment. If we were kind of, how to explain it? I thought Kaiser was going to get Shidoed. Let me be completely honest with you. I 100%, 100 million, billion, duodecillion percent thought Kaiser was going to get Shidoed. And if you may be wondering, Pencil, what are you talking about? You know how Shido's kind of been on the pitch ever since his first goal, but he hasn't really done anything? Like, at all. I'm not even just talking like scoring, but like character-wise, ever since Kunigami clamped onto him, he hasn't really been able to do anything. And even once Kunigami got off of him, once the Masters came in, not much has really happened with Shido. He's become an extra threat that we're all wary of, but like everybody in the Mama knows Shido's not doing anything. That's kind of how I felt about Kaiser, but the thing is, Kaiser keeps getting more character moments. He keeps being an active part of like Isagi's own journey. And he's an active threat to Isagi on one end, but he's also an active boon to Isagi. So like, since he's getting so much, it'd be weird to not give him some sort of culmination. But at the same time, it'd be weird to not give Ness something. But at the same time, maybe you could... it goes back into like the maybe you double back and like inverse reinforce it, which is going to sound so weird. But like, maybe you do something similar to what ended up happening with Uber's, I guess. Or like, Uber's resolve, quote unquote, was just them serving Baro again. But different, I guess. I guess you could do something like that. Just like, or you could, if you really want to aggressive, you could just do the Nagi and Rayo thing, where like, Ness does go back to Kaiser, but then like, Kaiser feels differently about it, I guess, and like, actually acknowledges Ness as a friend. But I don't know, it feels so strange. Like, I don't know, Ness is in a weird spot. He's in a weird spot narratively and character-wise. Because like, ultimately, he runs into an issue that a lot of the Neo Egoist League characters that aren't Blue Lockers run into, where like ultimately they kind of have to reset to their own respective status quo after the Neo Egoist League is over. Of course, we don't have this issue too much with Barcha and Manshine, but like for Lorenzo, it doesn't like this league doesn't really matter to him. He's clearly above it, and I'll have to get him and Snuffy just go back to their regular work. For Augie, he's barely a character, but from what he is, he would just go back to his regular stuff. And same thing for Kaiser and Ness. They kind of just had to go back to being what they were. It was like the whole story was kind of building to them shattering or breaking apart, but maybe it's a shattering and reconnection. It's kind of weird. It's so weird. That's the thing. That's the whole thing. Ness's scenario is weird. And it is somewhat the good weird, but it's mostly the weird. Where like, I'm not sure where it's going to go, and not in the best way possible, because the only way I'm looking at it right now, I feel like something gets undermined. Either Ness's story about liberation gets undermined, but maybe I'm reading that wrong. Maybe Ness's story isn't about liberation. It's about, like, switching your chains around, so maybe they aren't so heavy on your neck. I don't know. But if Ness's story is about liberation, Isagi's story is about evolution, and Kaiser's story is about redefinition of oneself, then I don't think you can mix all three of them together. Isagi and Ness can work together, and Isagi and Kaiser can work together, but the trio, something about the trio doesn't sit right to me. I feel like in this case, the best case would be Kaiser just losing Ness entirely to Isagi. But he can't. Because Isagi and Ness aren't going to play together. It's just like Ness and Kaiser aren't going to. Or no, Isagi and Kaiser are going to play together again. This is hurt my head. But, of course, I'm just going to leave it there because I feel like I'm going to talk myself into circles. But, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, please leave Magic Man. Leave Magic Man in the comment section down below. Please, tell me what you guys think. Do you guys see the same issue that I'm running into where, like, you don't know how Ness is necessarily going to play out in this narrative with Kaiser still having so much narrative impact and narrative weight and clearly, apparently, some more development to do in this very game, even though there's, like, very little time left, presumably considering the score is 2-2, we're at match point? Or do you guys just have a clear path? If you do, please let me know. Your boy could definitely use some help. But thank you so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure you hit that little notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do happen to have a Patreon down below where you support me for as low as $1, get a month. Now, things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. So those perks will include the live reactions, every the series I have to review, ad-free variations of all my videos, and becoming a $20 Patreon or $20 member. You can order whatever video you want. Also, I do have a link to my Ko-Fi in the description down below where you can drop 5 beans for a short video, 20 beans for a long video, or any beans at all. Any support is always greatly appreciated. Now, I'd like to thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with the Pencil, writing off.
I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members, Zara, Greyhound, Eternal Flame, Red Wolf 4765, Astro, Brandon Payne, Glacier XZ, and G Prosper. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $5 members, A plus A, Ignil Lind, Kevin Encarnacion, Midnight Lord 21, and Sean. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $7 members, Fine, Austin Wimberly, Uchiha, and Yuki Ally. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $10 members, AZ Void, J Warrior, and Robbie Uchiha. And I'd like to give a big old thank you to our $10 patrons, Overlord Zero, Waki Munoz, and Idem Okami. And I'd like to give a final, gracious, gargantuan thank you to our $100 That Guy with a Pencil tier patron, Calvin Elder.